Hey friend, Alex here, back with Audio Edges, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be uncovering the magic frequency range for mixing electric guitar. If you're getting into mixing music, chances are pretty certain you're going to come across an electric guitar at some point. And if you're an electric guitar player, you know that getting the right tone can be tough. But don't worry, today we're going to help. We'll first talk about where the magic frequency range is that gives the guitar its bite and edginess that makes it cut through. We'll talk about avoiding harsh frequencies, because if you do this whole thing wrong, it can actually make it worse. And finally, we'll talk about my simplest and favorite way to enhance and treat these frequencies. Before we dive in, I have to tell you about our amazing free resource called Ultimate Mixing Tips and Hacks. This is a free guide that is helping tons of mixers get better quickly with a simple list of tips that can make a difference right away. It's completely free. I know you'll love it, and the link is in the description. So go grab your free guide and let's dive in. Alright guys, we just hopped into Pro Tools. As always, the DAW doesn't matter, and what you'll see here is an electric guitar. Let's listen to this without any plugins or anything on, just the track the way it is. Nice. So as you can see, it's a good sounding electric guitar recording, but it's just a little bit dull and it doesn't sparkle and shine. Obviously, if we had like a whole song to look at, you could hear how the guitar might be a little muddy in the mix and could use some extra treatment to make it pop. So that's what we're going to cover. And the first thing I want to talk about is the frequency range that brings out that bite and edge in electric guitars. So this range is typically found in the mid to high frequencies, and it's where all the action happens. And the whole idea here is to boost frequencies in this range to bring that out. So let's actually open up an EQ here and just have a look and listen at the areas I'm talking about. Okay, so here's where the magic frequency range is, okay? I'm just going to solo the frequencies using this FabFilter Pro Q3 here, and we're going to listen because I'll show you where it starts and kind of where it ends. Okay, so this whole range here, kind of around 1K in a guitar, all the way up until pushing 5K, brings out all this character and this stuff that can make a guitar feel brighter and cut through. 1K sounds a little more... It has a bit more of that radio kind of nasal sound to it. And as we go higher, there's a lot of crispy and brittleness around 4 and 5K. And right around 2K, 3K, there's a lot of edge there and a lot of frequencies that can help the guitar cut through as well. Let's listen. So right away, let me just show you what it sounds like to boost this. Okay, so that was a little bit dramatic, but that's the idea. But here's the thing. If you don't treat this range correctly, you can end up with an actually harsher sounding guitar and even a more brittle sounding guitar, which is not something you necessarily want. So how do you avoid that? One way to consider is using EQ wisely. If boosting these frequencies makes your guitar too harsh, you might already have enough energy in these frequencies and you don't need to boost them more. In the case that your guitar still sounds muddy, you could just try cutting back on lower frequencies and creating more space for the mid and high frequencies to shine. But if the guitar is really a bit dull, which quite often it is, I find in mixing, we do want to bring those frequencies out, but avoid harshness by doing one particular thing. And that particular thing is pinpointing very specifically, kind of like this, the problem areas in the frequency range, and maybe pulling them out in advance or treating them again after you've boosted this area. So let's do this now as an exercise together. And I was already hearing a little bit of where our issue is lying in this particular guitar. So let's work on that now. Okay. So what I'm going to do is start with this FabFilter Pro Q3 here and just play the guitar. And let's listen if we hear kind of a whistling harsh frequency together. So there's a few frequencies here that are bothering me, and here's one. And here's the other. And I know that those frequencies, once we add a boost to this general area of the guitar, those are going to be brought out and be kind of create a harsh whistling sound in the guitar if I don't tame them a little bit now. So I'm going to do that just using an EQ here. And I'll also show you another way with a resonance suppressor called Soothe 2 in a moment. Okay, so I'm not going to go too crazy because I'm also going to hit these with Soothe 2. Okay, and as you can see, I've kind of already pinpointed a little bit in advance where some of these problem frequencies are. Let's play with this bypassed and with it on. Did you hear when I took it out of bypass how it really got a lot clearer in terms of pulling out those resonances? Okay, so it's subtle, but if you're listening for those frequencies in particular, you're going to hear it. And let's put Soothe into delta mode so you can hear exactly what we're taking out. So this area right around 2.3K is where I'm hearing some of those whistling resonances, and we're just hitting those a little more with this Guitar D Spike preset tweaked to pinpoint this area. Okay, so now we've tamed some of those whistling frequencies, but we haven't done big bell curves and cut things out. We're being more surgical here just to get some of those problem areas out of the way. Now, you may or may not need to tame these harsh frequencies a little bit again after we boost this area, but for now, this is definitely going to help. Okay, now is the fun part, my favorite and simplest way to enhance these frequencies. In my opinion, most of the time, you don't need to look any further than analog EQ. There's just something about the character and musical sound of an analog EQ that really makes an electric guitar thrive. So the idea is to open up an analog EQ and target the frequencies in this general range we talked about and make a boost or two to bring out that edginess and bite that we've been listening to. So I'm going to start by opening up this API plugin. And this is an emulation of an API console strip here, just particularly the EQ section. And this, honestly, this EQ right here is basically one of my complete go-tos for when it comes to analog EQ on a guitar. This API was I feel like it was made for guitars. It's great for other things too, but oh my gosh, it makes a guitar shine. And the way it works is we can select kind of a frequency here, and then we can boost it in increments of 2 dB. So usually I would say 2, max 4 dB is the most I'm doing on a guitar, unless, it's really missing a lot of these frequencies and we have to boost it up further. But this is just great. So let's listen what happens. Let's just grab a part of the guitar here and listen what happens when we boost 2.5K. Great. So you could hear once I boosted that up, it was already sounding just fantastic. Let's try 3K. So this will sound pretty similar. So already when I boosted those, you could hear the guitar has a lot more bite to it. Let's try 1.5K. So a little bit less crispy and a little more thickening. And we can probably really get some brightness and a little bit of brittleness out of this guitar if we go up here to around 5K as well. Do you hear when I take it away how dull the guitar sounds? So typically with this type of EQ, I'll maybe boost it in a couple spots. I might do something like 3K. Or I might go something like 1K or 1.5 rather. And I just play in this range until I get a combination of sounds that sounds great to me. Sometimes I only need one EQ around 1.5K. And it'll do the trick, bringing out that bite. So keep in mind that we're also making the guitar louder as we do this. So make sure your guitar isn't clipping or anything like that, and you can always trim using your plugin's output knob. Now, it doesn't have to be this API EQ. Let's try something else. Let's try an SSL EQ channel. Okay, and so this is modeling an SSL EQ strip here, and basically, we're going to look in this kind of high mid frequency range here, and you can see we can pick the frequency here and boost it using the volume. Okay, so let's listen in this range. I'm actually going to add a little boost, and then we'll scoop through these frequencies and just hear the character that this analog EQ brings to the electric guitar. I actually really like, you can really hear how between 1 to 5K, there's different, character in the guitar that you can bring out. 1 is more thick, 5K is more brittle, and everything in between is where a lot of the magic is. So, and don't feel restricted to that frequency range that I've kind of been talking about. That's just where I generally find can make a difference in most guitars. I typically really dive in around the 2K area, 3K, and all the way down to 1K. And anything higher than that is just adding a little bit of sparkle to the guitar. But generally, this is going to be a great range. So let's use a little combination of these analog EQs to get a good tone here, and then we can call it a day with this example. Okay, so we added a couple little boosts on the guitar, and I'm going to open up an EQ because, like we talked about, we're hearing a little bit of that annoying resonance coming back, and let's target that, pull it out one more time. That's it right there. Awesome. So let's hear with no plugins. And with our treatment. Okay, so it's up to you how much you add to the guitar, how much you bring out those frequencies. At the end of the day, you need to listen to your guitar, listen in the context of your mix, and remember with guitars, if you're brightening them, they can also get in the way of the vocal. So make sure if you have doubled guitars and you can pan them out and keep them to the sides, or whatever you can do to keep them out of the way of the vocal a little bit, that's a good idea as well. Always do this in context, always consider your song, but in general, this is going to really help your guitars cut through the mix and make a big difference. Well, friend, there you have it, the magic frequency range for enhancing electric guitars and how to avoid harsh frequencies while doing it. Now you'll be well on your way to getting the perfect tone for your electric guitar in your mixes. Thank you again for being here. I'm so grateful for the likes and the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new, because we have lots more content like this coming out soon. Finally, don't miss out on our free mixing tips and hacks guide. Even what we covered today is in that guide, so if you have it, you're probably already 2 steps ahead. And if you don't, I know you'll love it because of how simple it is and how you can see improvements right away. Thanks again for joining me today, and we will see you again next time.